So today's guest, Dale Otten, and I've known Dale for a very long time from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. He is director of philanthropy. He's got like tons and tons of energy. I think that's why we get along well, Dale. He's a huge promoter of the Heart and Stroke Foundation and works with certainly the Prairie Provinces and the Northwest Territories, which I found kind of like odd, but you've got a lot of space to cover. So hats off to you. Definitely his job is to link donors to the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and you couldn't have a fellow that's much more passionate than Dale. So welcome,
Thank
Dale.
you. That's very cool.
Amanda Nash. She is health promotion and nutrition manager for the Heart and Stroke Foundation, a registered dietitian. So definitely, and we'll talk a little bit about that connection with brain and gut and heart and stroke, right? How these all come together in one conversation. Certainly very, very passionate about ensuring that we've got the tools to create that awareness and educate the public in terms of what we need to be thinking about and how we can better manage our risks when it comes to chronic health disease. So thank you, Amanda, for joining us today as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this will be awesome. So we are going to, and we'll suggest that, again, you submit your questions throughout. If you want to have them at the end, that we're very welcome. You're welcome to do that, and we can submit back to you. I do want to make, in case I forget at the end, because sometimes that happens, right, Candace, is that we do have our guest for next month on March 18th. So do set that in your calendar. And excited to have Barb Martinez from Canada Life. And this gal's got tremendous depth and experience and wisdom with respect to drug solutions on the world of the insurer side. And past background for her has been working in the pharmaceutical side. So it's really interesting to be able to get both sides of the story. So she'll be our guest on the 18th of March. So let's roll. So I have got lots of questions, but the two, Amanda and Dale, have been so kind to be able to provide to me some really good key questions that we wanted to address today. And it is Heart Month. And so part of our theme moving into this, and that's why we thought it was very appropriate to have Dale and Amanda with us today, is that we have our theme of the month, which is Kickstart Your Heart. So it applies in many areas as it relates to my business on benefits and the financial planning. So our world at Vigorous Financial and Benefits. So we thought it was quite appropriate that we would link the two of these conversations together in February, being Heart Month. So thank you again. So I guess what I'd like to maybe start with, just to share with the audience, to Dale and Amanda, what's the history of the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and then how did it kind of come to be?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. And thank you so much for having us here today. I think I definitely miss seeing you in person, but this will suffice for now. And Amanda's cat was making a little appearance. I absolutely loved that.
I love that.
Welcome to the world of Zoom.
She's never gone out there before. I apologize.
I love that. I think it's awesome. The Heart and Stroke Foundation started over 70 years ago and how it began was a group of cardiologists needed money for their research. They were doing life-saving research and they needed money. So they gathered their family members and they started going door to door. And guess what month they started doing this in? February. I mean, not ideal in Canada, but they did it. They needed the funding then. So that's why we call it Heart Month. And so they went door to door February. Here we are today. And, Deb, you're inquiring about the link between heart and brain. Or the heart and stroke piece. And so you'll see behind me and Amanda here, we have the Heart and Stroke, which is our new branding that we launched in 2016. And the reason why it's heart and stroke is because the heart and brain are so deeply connected. And that's what donor dollars have been able to fund research for in the 70 years that we're here. And they're both vascular and they have very similar risk factors as well.
Yeah, and Dale, I can expand on that a little bit as well, because when we look at that interconnection between the heart, the brain, and the mind, it's fairly new that we're looking and seeing research that shows how deeply connected heart conditions, stroke, and vascular cognitive impairment are. So the brain and the heart. And just to give it a quick backup, when I say vascular cognitive impairment, I'm talking about cognitive decline that's caused because of abnormalities in the small blood vessels in the brain. So that could be things like mild concentration issues through to dementia. So when we look at the brain, the heart, and the mind, they're all connected through that vascular system. And so that's really where the heart and the stroke come together, and what we're really working towards here at Heart and Stroke. There was a recent analysis of the hospitalizations over 10 years that looked at people who had one vascular condition being significantly higher risk for developing or could already actually have another vascular condition. And that would result in rehospitalization and sometimes in death. So that was between 2007 and 2017. About 2.6 million hospitalizations in Canada happened because of someone who was experiencing one or more of these vascular conditions. And 40% of those individuals were readmitted one or more times because of developing a new vascular condition. So really highlights that interconnectivity between the different vascular conditions that can affect our brain and our heart. Also really reminds us the importance to have these conversations with our healthcare provider, and then also more now than ever before to look at prevention. And at Heart and Stroke, our vision is to see life uninterrupted by heart disease and stroke. And we do this by promoting health at events like today, by saving lives and enhancing recovery. Everything that Dale and I and the Heart and Stroke team does is based at improving the health of Canadians by decreasing risk factors and reducing the death rates related to heart disease, stroke, and vascular cognitive impairment.
Well, and you know, it's interesting because, I mean, at the end of the day, we tend to ignore, right, a lot of things that are going on in our world, and we tend to blame these things on, I didn't get enough sleep, I might be dealing with a little bit of stress, and so we're our own worst enemies, right? And so I think it's really important that we start to pay attention to what those symptoms, as you mentioned, are, and not to take them lightly, because in today's world, probably with COVID, that's elevated those symptoms, I think, in a lot of cases. And maybe sadly it does create an awareness, but yet I'm not really thinking it's that, because I'm just stressed because it's COVID, right? So I think it's really important for people to pay closer attention to it.
And you are right that we've actually seen less people going to hospital for a heart or brain condition during COVID because of the pandemic scare. And so people are less likely to admit their symptoms, less likely to seek out care. And people living with heart or brain conditions have told us at Heart and Stroke that they're scared to go to the hospital right now. And so their caregivers have said the same thing. So it's so important that you know your body best, you can recognize what's going on in your body, and that you're seeking care for those medical emergencies, because even during the pandemic, our hospitals are prepared.
Yeah, it's important not to ignore those.
Yep, absolutely. By the way, Amanda, Laura, thank you, Laura. She loves your kitten visitor.
Thank you. Her name is.
Now, if I was doing this at home, I'd have 3 crawling all over me. Just say it. So, and then they'll just plunk themselves right in my lap. So they're quite needy.
She was nibbling on the fern.
Yeah,
exactly. She's never jumped up there before, so she saw the opportunity. Amanda can't help me; she's on camera.
Exactly. So I guess because I'm a big stat gal, and I know in our world, we spend a lot of time talking about, there again, there's a link, because when in the world that we're in, we're talking about, creating peace of mind and helping employees be prepared. And clients be prepared, because what happens if something happens? And I think quite often we forget about that. And I know that, just in a lot of conversations, people just hope that they're just going to sail through life and they'll just slowly move into retirement, and that will be all really great. But we also know that the stats on retirement says that they're not even prepared for that. So what happens when something like this happens? And I mean, I always feel that, stats are certainly a reminder to make it very, very real for us. So, I mean, I've got a few stats in mind, but I know that you guys have got, very close stats in terms of how it relates to your world.
Yeah, and just building on that before we dive too deeply into the stats, I think it's really important to remember that although Canadians are living longer lives now than ever before, on average, a Canadian's last 10 years of their life is lived in disability or disease. And so we can change that. We have the ability to change that so we can live longer, healthier, quality lives by looking at our risk factors. So by living a healthier lifestyle, which we'll talk about throughout the next half an hour or so, but then also by making sure that you're paying attention to these medical emergencies and getting treatment to manage your conditions. So we can have those longer, healthier lives. We just have to pay attention to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say that's the key. It doesn't matter about long living. It's about healthier long
Quality.
living.
Yes.
Quality of life. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if we look at some of the stats, we know that 1 in 5 deaths in Canada is caused by a heart condition. So that's equal to 1 person dying every 9 minutes because of heart condition. VCI, when we include VCI, vascular cognitive impairment, and stroke, that's going to be every 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes in Canada, someone will die with a vascular condition related to the heart or the brain. So that's a lot, and we know we've seen great improvements in our treatment and our procedures around heart and brain health, but we are still seeing a lot of Canadians, unfortunately, losing their lives to these conditions. Heart disease is the #1 cause of premature death for women here in Canada, and we know that women are under-researched. So with the history of heart health research being focused on men, we know a lot about the man's heart. And also, even now, only about 1/3 of research is looking at women. And Heart and Stroke does really work hard to ensure that all the research we are doing has that sex and gender lens. So anything that we fund will have that inclusion for women so that we can learn more about women's hearts and start to see some movement in that area.
So and I'm getting interjected, my apologies, because I was reading that and I've read it a few times, and I asked myself the question, why? Why is it we know more about men's hearts than women's hearts? You know, I mean, I in fact just today on Facebook, when I read that stat, I sent that out to my gal friends and colleagues, and I went, women, you need to pay attention. Like this is pretty serious stuff. The fact that you know, we're right up there with men, but yet we haven't got enough of that back end history that goes along with it.
Yeah, and when we look at the history of why, there's multiple different reasons. One, women were less likely to volunteer to be research participants because women tend to be the caregivers in the home. They have multiple other responsibilities and are less likely to look at their own health. But also because of the different hormonal changes that women experience, pregnancy, menopause, our state, for lack of a better word, is less stable compared to a man. So for a long time with research, it was safer to look at men because of that consistency within the man's internal state. So those are 2 examples of reasons why women weren't previously, but we've learned so much. And we know that it's not only like sex differences with gender, gender plays a big role as well. So it's not only if you are a man or a woman, but also your role that you play and who you identify with as female or male or non-binary, that plays a huge impact on your health as well. So these are great areas that we need to look at to include in research so we can have a better idea of how everybody is affected by heart disease. And Dale, I think that you might have some comments.
I was just going to say that one of the taglines that I love is the fact that women are not little men. They're not little men. They are very different.
I like that.
Women have neglected themselves for years because they, as Amanda was saying, they are the caregivers in the family, and so they rarely put themselves first. And that's stories that we're hearing time and time again from our incredible people with lived experience that volunteer with us. Recognizing this piece, Heart and Stroke launched the Women's Heart and Brain Health Initiative. So it's a Canada-wide piece, but we have donors right at home in Saskatchewan who have developed the founding members category. And one of them is Terry Lemke, who has gifted us over $100,000 to advance research. Carol Jensen, who from Canadiana Developments, was one of the first ones to step forward to say we need to make a difference and help save women's lives. They're dying unnecessarily. So how can we do this? It's funding that research component that helps.
Yeah, put it in a little bit more perspective too, just to get down to that actual internal level. A woman's heart is smaller than a man's heart, and also blood vessels are smaller. So when we look at the different hormones that women and men have in different amounts, men's blood vessels tend to be larger because of those hormones. Women's are a lot smaller. And the way that plaque would build up, so cholesterol plaques that can cause narrowing of those blood vessels, they build up differently in men and women. And so there's lots to be learned about how heart disease progresses within a woman versus what we know within a man.
Yeah, that's interesting. And couple that with history, family history, you know, and so that's, again, we talk about this all the time in our world, because that's why we're really, really encouraging people to do planning early while you are still healthy, hoping you never get unhealthy. But in case it should happen, we want you to put into play a plan for life. We want to put in what happens if something happens, and we need to take care of the children and the family. So life insurance and critical illness becomes very important. And I'm actually very keen on that, because now for me, and I'll be the first to admit, because I mean, I am young, but I'm at that stage in life where I need to be a bit more conscious of it. I am female. I probably am a AAA, right, Dale? And I've got family history. And so at the end of the day, now Debbie now is having to be very, very cognizant of what's happening in my space with this, because I am very devoted to my blood pressure monitor kits, because the doctor says if you don't get this right, you're a candidate for stroke or heart disease, right? So it's like, I'm very on top of that. I'm mild hypertension, and I'm tinier. So I don't know, when you say women's hearts are tinier and I'm only 4'10", does that mean I have a really, really tiny heart? but I couldn't stress enough to the people watching today, and I'll tell this every time I tell people, I said, just buy a monitor, just do it, like, and put that thing on every few days and check it, and get comfortable with it, because it stresses you to do it at the initial time, right? Because that's what they always say, the doctor with the white collar, right? But you get used to doing it like you're taking vitamins. It's really important, because and we talked about that, and we'll maybe deal with it like being the silent killer, right? So I'm digressing, and I just want to make sure we covered the stats off, because I do have a question, and I wanted to share with the audience, what are those differences and signs that you would see on the difference between a man and a woman when it comes to, you know, having heart disease?
And Deb, you brought up so many great factors. So I hope we can come back to some of those conversations about things like age and gender and risks and high blood pressure. But yeah, let's dive into the signs before we forget. And when we look at the signs of a heart attack, I mean, February is Heart Month. What better time to really learn those signs of a heart attack so that you can react appropriately should you or someone else experience a heart attack? And so in general, you know, a chest discomfort. So that could be a pain, a pressure, a heaviness, a squeezing sensation in the chest area. That's still going to be the most common sign of a heart attack for both men and women. But there are other symptoms, and it is important to note that women sometimes can experience a heart attack without that chest discomfort. And oftentimes when women present with a heart attack, they do describe that chest discomfort more mildly compared to what a man would describe. Other symptoms are sweating, that cold, clammy sweat, upper body discomfort. So that could be in the jaw, the neck, the shoulders, the upper back. For women, women oftentimes will describe more of an upper body discomfort in the upper abdomen or in the upper back as well. Also nausea, shortness of breath, and lightheadedness. And very important to note that oftentimes women will experience extreme fatigue and dizziness leading up to their event as well. So there are some slight differences in how women perceive their symptoms compared to how men perceive their symptoms. And what's really important is that right now, 53% of women who experience heart attack symptoms have them go unrecognized. So Heart and Stroke wants to change this, but that's where you as the general public have a huge role to advocate for your own health as well. You know yourself best. So if you're experiencing these symptoms and something's not right, make sure that you push to get answers.
No, absolutely. And Tanya has a question for you. So thanks, Tanya. Does this mean that heart disease typically progresses faster in women than in men?
Well, we do know that estrogen has a protective factor on our heart, but we also know that there's some changes within our hormones as women go through different cycles in their life. So for example, women will tend to be slightly at less risk than men prior to menopause. But when women are pregnant, for example, there are certain conditions that can develop that put you at an increased risk. So it really is tied to the fluctuations in your hormones and then the different stages that you go through within your life cycle. So pregnancy can increase your risk. almost like the extreme stress test on your heart for a woman. And then after menopause, when that estrogen levels change, that can increase your risk as well. But the good news is that if you have any conditions throughout your pregnancy that may increase your risk, you can have those open conversations with your doctor, with your OBGYN, and make sure that you're getting the proper treatment to decrease your risk. And then after menopause with that change, women do tend to increase blood cholesterol levels, sometimes blood pressure. The way that you manage your blood sugars kind of changes a bit, and that women are more likely to hold extra weight in their midsection. So those could increase your risk, but those all can be managed. So any of those types of conditions, if you manage through medication or through lifestyle changes, can decrease your risk further.
Interesting. No.
Like walking. Deb, how many steps did you get in over the last few days?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm a big walker, and I just read a survey from the University of Saskatchewan, and they talked about blood pressure and the link between stretching and managing blood pressure. So now I've added a little bit of stretching and upper core to my routine. But yes, Dale, I got averaged 76 kilometers I didn't average, I walked 76 kilometers in the last 7 days.
Amazing.
I do a lot of walking and talking. Is what I do.
And that's wonderful, but I also want a preference for those individuals out there who maybe are more sedentary and are trying to get to where Deb is. Every little bit does count. So
Absolutely.
Please don't go from 500 steps a day up to where Deb is, because you're probably not going to continue that habit. So small, sustainable increases to get up to Deb's level. A role model.
You don't have to walk to the cabin. You don't have to walk to the cabin.
Hitchhike halfway. But you know what? Absolutely, Amanda. And I always say, you know what? Everybody always says we're so busy, we're so busy, we're so busy. You're not so busy. If you can't make 20 minutes happen a day, 20 minutes, you know what? Maybe that means you run up and down the stairs 5 times and throw a load in the laundry and go feed the kids. But it can, and you have to start there. You can't be thinking way over here, because at the end of the day, it's not sustainable. I mean, I'm just fortunate in my stage of life that I'm able to do it, and the work I do, I can do it.
Well,
so
when we look at the actual guidelines, we're trying to aim for 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per week. So if we look at that, you can break it down any way you want. A great suggestion there, Deb, 20 minutes a day will do. Moving your body more often throughout the day to break up sedentary time has shown great benefits. And if you're not really sure what to do, walking is a really great place to start. But if you don't like walking, don't do it. There's so many ways to move your body. Maybe, like you mentioned, running up the stairs. Don't forget those chores. Laundry, like you mentioned, housework is definitely getting you moving. When we're looking at what moderate is, I like to do the talk test. So if you're talking the way that I'm talking right now, you're probably doing some pretty light or no activity. If you can say maybe a sentence and then you need to stop to breathe, probably moderate. If you could only say a word or two and then you have to stop to breathe, that's likely vigorous. So you don't have to get too complex. If you don't have that Fitbit or that heart rate monitor, no problem. Just look at how you're breathing, how you're talking, and try and get to that moderate level.
Absolutely. And you know what, and all of this, I mean, the one thing that, even my doctor has said, yes, we have technology and modern medicine, but the one thing that we need to pay attention to is have an intimate relationship with your body. Just know what your body is on a good day and know when your body's a bit off, and start paying attention to that, because I think that's the part that we tend to ignore. And when you get into, that more preventative stuff, I mean, that's probably the fundamental step I think that we miss before we can get to those other places. So no, those are all great points. We breezed through, we finished off with the symptoms of the men and women. We're good on that, Amanda?
Yes, for sure. And if you want more information, definitely visit our website. We threw out there so much information about women. So if you want to kind of put that together and reflect, heartandstroke.ca/women, we have an entire page with some great links specific to information about women.
Yes, and that's a good point. Now, Candace, are we able to share the links that they're showing?
They'll all be in the comments.
Okay, perfect.
Great,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
we're going to share these links that you addressed, so that's perfect. I do have another question. Is it possible to have a heart attack with no symptoms?
Oh, well, that's a very interesting question. Some people will experience not all the symptoms, but maybe 1 or 2 of the symptoms. What I would think is that if you have a heart attack with no symptoms, perhaps you didn't recognize because they were more mild, but you definitely will have some aftermath from that. So definitely talk to your doctor. If you're not really sure what's going on with your health, or if you're at risk, or if you may have had a heart attack, or what those symptoms mean, we do have some great questions on our website about how to talk to your doctor to understand what's going on inside your body. So double check the website for how to talk to your doctor, and then you can get some information to figure that out. But it definitely is possible that you won't experience all those symptoms that we talked about, maybe just one or two of those symptoms.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a really good point. And sorry, Dale, you wanted to jump in because I just want to make sure. But virtual, like when you said talk to your doctor. Okay, so we talked about this whole well, anxiety, which is leading to mental well-being compromises, which is leading to what we're talking about today, right? Everything's interlinked. But that's the one thing that comes up most often. And I know in our space, again, in the insurance world and group benefits, we couldn't have been more happy to see, sadly, thank you to COVID. Not that I want COVID here, but it moved the technology in a huge way. And so now, whether it's COVID or not, people have that virtual ability to connect with their doctors and have those conversations. You don't need to book in. If you need to talk, whether it's direct with your own doctor, they're already set up to have patient to doctor conversations virtually. And then through many of the group benefit programs, that's what we're doing now. We're embedding those that ability. So that gives us a little bit better of an opportunity. So if something's happening right now and they can't see their doctor, they can go onto the virtual care or the virtual telemedicine, and they can call in and they can basically say, this is like, it's an emergency. So you can get that direct conversation going right away, which is what is part of that prevention, right?
Definitely, and it's so wonderful how technology is improving our access to care, but at the same time, it can be kind of daunting for some people. So what we've done at the Heart and Stroke Foundation is we have created some virtual care toolkits for health providers, but also a one-page virtual healthcare checklist for individuals. So again, you can find that on the website, and that virtual care checklist, it goes over how to prepare for your virtual appointments, what to do during your appointment, and how to properly follow up, to give people a little bit more security and understanding, and ensure they're still getting the most out of their healthcare appointments. Because for some people, this is very new and it's very different. And if you already have a lot of stress because of the changes within the pandemic, we want this to be one last thing that can stress you out, and we want to ensure that you're still getting the maximum out of your healthcare appointments. So we do have that virtual care checklist available.
Absolutely. And we see it in our space, because who are the people that are really gravitating towards technology on any level? Millennials, right? They're used to this space. Whereas, someone in their 50s may not, and they've been seeing the doctor face to face for years. Their question might be, well, how can they help me with a phone call? Right? So it's education, and it's providing a level of trust and confidence that same level of care can happen. I mean, not on every level, but there's a very large core that we can still deal with virtually. And then to take the stress away of the fact that you can't go see them face to face because of COVID. I mean, I think that, that certainly plays a large part in people's comfort level, is that it's still there. Something's still there on a level of care, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause quickly, because what I did forget, but this is probably better for the viewers, is we did say that we have a draw every month, and it'll be again for the Cavalier. So I'm going to throw this out to those viewers, and this is what I need you to, because I know that you've all been paying attention up to this point. So before the end of the session, if you'd like to put your name in for the draw, I would like to throw this question out to you. So far, and maybe throughout the rest of this presentation, I want you to share with us 3 things that you've learned that hopefully you're going to adopt and apply to your own self-well-being. So 3 things that you've learned throughout this presentation that was helpful and that you potentially will adopt to your own personal lifestyle. So there you go. So be now paying attention. So anyway, so we talked about risk. And I think, you know what, we're all pretty knowledgeable, but I think sometimes we ignore maybe some of the simpler ones. So maybe share with us some of the risks of heart disease. Why would we get there?
Yeah, so there's 2 types of risks: the ones you can't control, which we touched on a little bit, and the ones you can control, which we touched on a little bit as well. And so those risks that you can't control, like sex, age, the older you are, the higher your risk. But we do know that people of all ages can be affected. medical family history. The closer the relative and the earlier their age, the higher your risk for heart disease if they've had an event. Different ethnicities like South Asian, African, First Nation heritage, Inuit, Métis, those can put you at increased risk because those individuals are at higher risk for hypertension or diabetes. In fact, Indigenous women are more than twice as likely as non-Indigenous women to die should they develop a heart disease. And so this is a huge area that Heart and Stroke is focusing on because we know physical risk factors account for part of this, but we also know that there's a big impact of gender, the environment, social and cultural factors. And Dale, maybe you want to speak to this a little bit more as well, but in Saskatchewan, we're so lucky to have Dr. Heather Folds. She works at the University of Saskatchewan, and she really shines that spotlight on the social and cultural factors that impact heart and brain health for Indigenous women.
Yeah, she does. And that's one of the pieces that one of our founding members actually supported. We have 3 funded researchers in Saskatchewan. Dr. Heather Folds is one. And as Amanda said, researching the impacts on Indigenous women. And so that really, really resonated with our donor, the donors in the pipeline that wanted to make a difference in the community. So that's what Dr. Heather Folds is working on right now as we.
It's very amazing. Great to see not only that gender lens, but also bringing in the social and cultural factors and looking at the risks that the social and cultural environments play or can play for preventing or for increasing your risk. So that's a real gem that we have here in Saskatchewan. Very lovely. But even when we look at all of these risk factors that we can't control, the really good news is that 80% of premature heart disease can be prevented through lifestyle habits. So we talked a little already about how things like blood cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes, they can all be managed and controlled. And if they are managed and controlled, then they do decrease your risk. So they are risk factors, but we consider those conditions to be modifiable risk factors because we can control them. And actually, Dale, maybe you want to speak now to another researcher in Saskatchewan. You guys are full of the gems out there. Another researcher who's looking at cholesterol and cardiac health and immunity.
Yes, Dr. Oh, wait a minute here, Scott Wiedemeyer. And he actually he is receiving the national highest ranked of all new investigators. I just found that out this morning. So he's with UOS. And so he's right at home in Saskatchewan as well. And he's researching the cholesterol piece that Amanda was talking about. And I'll let her speak to more of the research component of that.
Yeah, and actually he's new. We just started funding him. So really exciting to see what he's going to come up with and the connection that he can find between the way our body metabolizes and utilizes cholesterol. We do know that cholesterol is something our liver produces. And so everybody's going to have different cholesterols. It is a hormone. It does have a role in our body. For most people, your liver can regulate the amount of cholesterol that is produced, but for some people, not as well. Common myth that maybe I'll just mention now is that, cholesterol in food, this is an 80s thought, cholesterol in food affects our blood cholesterol. And it's not really the case because our bodies do produce cholesterol. So, the cholesterol we eat in food maybe has about 20% impact, it's very minimal. But however, the intake of things like saturated fat or low fiber, that can actually impact our blood cholesterol. And so there's so many unique areas to cholesterol that we're still learning about. And this is some really great research, and the immunity component is a newer area. So really great things that we're going to find out from University of Saskatchewan with this.
I like that. And we talked about, risk factors and sadly too, some of it plays into, what people's responses are with COVID, right? In terms of having maybe a little bit more docile lives and not moving around as much and things, but obesity. I know, again, something in our space that we're very quick cognizant of. And I always, suggest that, that plays a factor into your ability to plan, for purposes of insurance, right? And so it was an interesting stat because they said obesity is there and very real, but 1 in 4 adults are clinically obese, and 1 in 10 children, which is that's always the part that concerns me is the children. And because, you talk about the preventative side, Amanda, and what are those things we need to do? And I mean, we need to start this much, much earlier in life. You can start it at 50, but you really need to start it when you're younger. And so that you create that healthy lifestyle for yourself.
Definitely.
Which,
And it is never too late. So if you're 50 or older and you're thinking, oh, it's too late for me, definitely not. Change is always going to have a positive impact, but definitely instilling those lifestyle habits younger. And Dale, sorry, I interrupted you there.
not at all. I was just going to speak to, that's a great point with starting younger, and with the Heart Smart Kids program that Heart and Stroke developed over 20 years ago in Western Canada, and we modified it, and it's Heart Smart Kids at Home now. And we have one of our highest participation rate is actually in Saskatchewan for that.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's quite incredible. And it teaches kids from kindergarten to grade 6 how to take care of their heart, their body, their mind, and really make the right choices, because it's what you're speaking to in eliminating that piece where there's going to be the obesity issue, and they can develop the right habits. So, and there's no better person on this call than Amanda to speak to the Heart Smart Kids program, because she's on the national team.
I am.
Nice.
And
Nice.
Deb, I love what you've talked about. And we know that, yes, excess weight does increase our risk for heart disease and stroke. But something that's so important to remember is that weight is not a behavior. So we want to focus on those behaviors. That's what we can control. And by taking on some of those healthier behaviors, it may not, but it may affect your weight and help you to manage and control your weight. But even if you have those healthier behaviors at a higher weight, you still are at a better outcome when it comes to risk for heart disease and stroke.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
especially when we're talking with our kids, like, let's take weight out of the equation. There we go. And really look at those healthy lifestyle factors. And the Heart Smart Kids program is a fun, interactive way for educators to enhance some of the great lessons they're already teaching around healthy living. But then it's also really important for us as adults to be really good role models for our kids. We know that kids learn from what we're doing around them. So being a good role model by, consuming more vegetables and fruits, making them the star of all your meals and your snacks, having a variety of protein choices in your diet and choosing whole grains, looking for water as your beverage of choice, getting more activity, walking like Deb walks, or just slowly increasing your activity levels and having fun doing it. Managing your stress, being more mindful with some of the stretching activities you mentioned, but lots of other ways to do that as well with meditation, deep breathing, recognizing your stressors as a first step is really important. And then also for us adults, being smoke-free, and then making sure that our youth understand the risks of some of those commercial tobacco products and vaping as well.
And Deb, you were talking about breaking down barriers with the medical system. COVID also allowed us to break down barriers in how we reach the youth. And that's how we developed the Heart Smart Kids at Home program. So now we're right at home with them because they're not in school, or they weren't in school. And so the reach is so much wider.
Well, and we'll get Candace to put the link in the chat for Heart Smart Kids. And then from the Heart Smart Kids website, if you're an educator, you can register for the resource. But if you're a parent or a guardian or a caregiver for children, you can link through there to Heart Smart Kids at Home, where the downloadable activities are easily accessible. Variety of activities. We started really to focus on what was important throughout COVID, which was that mindfulness, but then also including physical activity. And now there's a plethora of different fun activities that you can download to keep your kids fun, busy, entertained, and learn
kids
at
love
the same time.
Yeah, you guys have a perfect value system, as well many, but the one that comes to mind is Blue Cross with Push Play, because it's about just changing how your behaviors are in a day and that activity and having fun with it. It's not an exercise program, it's an activity, right? There's differences in how our brain would think, and I think we were even talking, Dale, and I kind of stumped him because I said to him, man, I said, maybe you guys can talk about that champ camps.
And I said, we have a camp. And I mean, I'm not, and I said to Deb, that would be hilarious if I actually, so we researched, and it was part of U of S and the Children's Hospital.
Children's Hospital
has that.
So Bryn Bobak, reach out to her. I mean, they're doing some fantastic things, at the Children's Hospital. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, a really nice point too, that reminds me that just 2 weeks ago was Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Week. And so we know many children, one type of heart disease would be the structure of your heart. And so many children can be born with congenital heart disease, and that can have a huge impact on their lives and their parents as well. And so building some awareness about congenital heart disease is really important. You'll see that on our website. But we also did just have a Heart Smart Kids at Home activity about congenital heart disease and understanding that everyone's hearts are different, and sometimes someone's heart can be hurt. And so if you're looking for more information to talk to your kids about heart disease, there's that activity as well.
I think Amanda brings a very good point too with the age range, and heart and stroke related diseases it doesn't care what postal code you come from, what kind of a car you drive, what color your skin is. It can affect everybody at every age. From 8 days old, we have a little boy named Theo, whose birthday is in March actually, who had open heart surgery when he was 8 days old. And then we have a beloved 101-year-old friend in Saskatoon. Her name is Rose, who has congestive heart failure. And speaking with Amanda, she uses Campbell soup cans to exercise every day. So she exercises.
Good for her. Mike Carr says, thanks, Mike, for joining in. He misses his big bike, he says, with his biking with his colleagues at Saskatchewan Blue Cross. So is there any unique fundraising events that you guys know are coming up in 2021 that we might be able to share with our audience, and certainly through our social media?
So that's a great question. As you know, and as every other charity and events have been really paused for quite a while, face-to-face events, but we are doing a lot of virtual pieces with that. So we do have the virtual Heart Month this month, and a shout out to Saskatchewan Blue Cross as well, because as we were talking about Heart Smart Kids, we're the first corporate company to step up and actually support Heart Smart Kids at home. So that was really incredible. So our reach is just expanding with that. So thank you for that. You know, Deb, you will be very familiar, and Shauna as well, with the Hockey Heroes event that we are quite famous for. So it is not canceled, it's paused. Fundraising is still happening with that. So you know, top fundraisers like Sean Hitchcock and Carla Jury, that you can still donate to their cause, and we will be, God willing, we will be regrouping again in 2022. So if you look on our website, there are many different ways that you can continue to either host a fundraiser. So we have what's now called Fundraise Your Way, and it's an awesome way. You know, we've had people have pierogi sales, and they'll donate the funds from that to Heart and Stroke to support research.
And be creative.
Be creative. The sky's fairly the limit, and Fundraise Your Way, you can find that on our website as well. It's creating those unique events, whether it's a walking challenge too, Deb. I mean, you're basically walking to and from the cabin now. Maybe you want to do something.
I'll pick people up along the way.
You can drive people, yeah. And so,
Drop them off.
It's that creative piece that people can still create to give. But
yeah,
event-wise, until it's completely safe to do so, we're not going to put anybody at risk.
I will jump in though, for those bikers, you mentioned people missing bikes. We do have our virtual Ride for Heart in June. Yeah. And so last year, again, a quick switch to transition to a virtual way of life with COVID was the first time that they've done Ride for Heart virtually. This event was typically done or traditionally done in Ontario, but now it's brought that event across Canada. And so a really great way where you can ride and track your miles. You can walk, you can just move your body in any way you want and participate in Ride for Heart this year through the virtual platform. And so I believe that's on June 5th. And Deb, we can definitely send you more information, because off the top of my head, I don't know the website.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely share that. I'm just mindful of time, but a couple more questions. This is awesome. I do want to welcome a few that have come online, and then Sherry from Leadership Saskatoon. Allie, thank you for coming and joining us. Bev, thank you for your comment before about the buying the monitor. Yes, absolutely. If I could share my one tip of the day, that would be it. But she had a question. Or she says she will know what's happening with your body when you're having an off day, meaning something is making me feel I have no energy. So I think we really have to, I think to your point, Bev, I think we have to really pay attention to that and not just chalk it up as I didn't get much sleep. Although as women going through the stages of life, that is very possible. And that's why it's really hard, I think, to really connect this to something beyond menopause, right? So I think it's, again, be very in tune with your body. Yes.
you and I had that conversation when we were at the Cactus Club about not ignoring the signs and not putting yourself last, putting yourself forward. So I think, you know, that's the message that you're resonating with, Bev. And I was very happy to hear, Deb, that you didn't ignore.
No,
Yeah.
well, and I've got the history. I've got the
Yeah.
history, and I've had very close, people around me that have unfortunately suffered stroke, and with my mother passing on. So I'm very aware of this subject line, and very aware now of what I need to be doing differently. And the fact of the matter is, again, a stat, but I mean, like 80% of heart disease is preventable. So we just need to spend more time to pay attention, right? So all great conversation. Oh my gosh, we've got so much to talk about. I know we didn't get onto a few, but we did get to talk a little bit about your fundraising. And I know it's really difficult. We've got many clients that are in the not-for-profit, business. And when you're going through a pandemic, it's very difficult to raise money. But I do know you guys have mentioned a couple of great events that you're having. That will be part to allowing people out in the audience to and share and contribute. I also excited to always be a participant of it. And I think that, again, we just need to spend more time creating awareness. I know that there's many companies that are doubling, if not tripling, someone's contribution. So for example, in our space, Manulife, one of the suppliers we worked with, it allowed us as advisors to make a contribution and have them triple it.
That was a triple match.
So be thinking about that out there, that there's a lot of companies that will allow for that. They'll match your contribution, and that, what a wonderful way to really maximize, your love for the foundation. So that is, my gosh, I think we've had some really good questions. I know there might be more. Thank you very much, everybody. I did say what we had as a prize, but I don't think, Candace, I said who the winner was.
I'm not sure.
Fantera Fisher. Fantera Fisher was the winner of last month's gift. So again, for those in the audience, send us 3 things that you learned that you'd apply that would make your lifestyle much healthier. That would be awesome. I think in closing, I want to probably say thank you very much, Dale and Amanda, for coming on board. I mean, I think there was a lot of great information to share. It's a very important topic line. Again, our videos will be posted on our website and our Facebook. So, I mean, to anybody who's watching, please go and share them. The links that we've talked about today will be on the website, so you can share that. And I know that there was one really great infogram that was on your website I really enjoyed, and it was just really lots of great stats and things like that. So
there's a lot of terrific infograms on there. And may I say something very quickly before we close? Yeah. So Heart Month is February, Stroke Month is June, and I just want to thank you because in December there was a $5,000 donation that came through that was triple matched by Manulife, and because of that, we're starting to advance the stroke awareness piece. And if you found today interesting, maybe Amanda and I could come back in June to talk to you and update you on what's happening in Saskatchewan with stroke awareness. A lot of exciting things.
I think we need to make it happen. Absolutely, Dale. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining, and thank you to the audience for joining in. I really learned a lot, and certainly makes me much more encouraged to want to pay attention to what I'm doing and measuring it mentally on a daily basis to say, did I do those things that, and we're not perfect by any stretch of the mind, but if we're just working towards, it's always work in progress, as long as it's progress, right? So thank you, Dale. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you everyone else. And have a wonderful Thursday. And yes, the weather's getting even better, so something to be grateful for.
+1 by Monday. Bye, everybody.
Love it.
Take care.
Bye-bye.